Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for May 8th. May 8th is the 128th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, 129th in leap years, with 237 days remaining to the end of the year. Did you know that this is National Teacher Appreciation Week? The first full week in May is Teacher Appreciation Week, and actually the Tuesday of the first full week in May is National Teacher Appreciation Day. So you have from right now until class starts tomorrow to put together something nice like a handmade card or a thank you note to show your teachers how much you appreciate them. Whether in public school, private school, online academy, or homeschool, I know that there are teachers and their students who watch my Day in History series. I know this because I hear from them occasionally, and you can't imagine how much that means to me. Sometimes I also hear from the students themselves, and again, you can't imagine how much that means to me. For instance, I recently heard from Karen from the Los Angeles Online Academy, BIVA, mentioning their teacher, Mr. T. So I want to give a special shout out to Mr. T. It sounds like you're a huge inspiration to your students. Bless you, sir. Keep up the good work. Alrighty, let's get on with today's episode. Today's word is magnanimous. Magnanimous is an adjective that means showing or suggesting a lofty and courageous spirit, or showing or suggesting nobility of feeling and generosity of mind. Example uses could include references to a benefactor's magnanimous gift or a boss's magnanimous gesture. The word magnanimous comes to us from Latin word parts that mean great spirit. Magnanimous. First known use of the word magnanimous is 1547. Magnanimous. And with that, on May 8th, 1541, Hernando de Soto stopped near present-day Walls, Mississippi, and saw the Mississippi River, at which time was called the Rio de Espiritu Santo. And why do we care about this? Señor de Soto led the first European expedition deep into the territory of modern-day United States, through present-day Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and possibly even on into Arkansas, and was the first European documented as having crossed the Mississippi River. Now, back during the reign of King Louis XVI of France, there was a statesman named Charles Alexandre de Calonne, the Count of Hannonville. France was in ever-deepening financial trouble with debts they couldn't pay and a king's court to support, and Calonne had proposed some plans and ideas to increase revenue, which generally consisted of increasing some taxes and replacing others and doing away with exemptions for privileged classes. This would have been one of the most comprehensive attempts at reform during Louis XVI's reign. Unfortunately, the aforementioned privileged classes didn't like any bit of it. Protests erupted against Calonne. He's busy trying to keep France from going flat broke, but nobody likes his methods. He was blamed for the problems he was trying to solve, and he was dismissed, fired, and exiled. The guy King Louis XVI hired to replace Calonne didn't like Calonne in the first place and presented some ideas of his own, but nobody liked those ideas either. And since the parliaments were kicking up most of the fuss against these new proposed financial measures, on May 8, 1788, King Louis XVI attempted to impose those financial reforms by abolishing the parliaments. Things didn't go well for King Louis XVI from there. Ultimately, the monarchy would be abolished 4 years later in 1792, and King Louis XVI and his queen, Marie Antoinette, would be executed the January after that. Yikes. On May 8, 1980, the World Health Organization confirmed the eradication of smallpox, and not a moment too soon. Smallpox was really bad. It historically came in outbreaks and had about a 30% fatality rate. In 18th century Europe, an estimated 400,000 people a year would die from smallpox, and about a third of the survivors would end up blind. So it's good that they got that one knocked out. Let me pause for a moment here before we go on to the song of the day to say that I'll include a link to a previous episode for May 8th in case you'd like to see what else we might have mentioned before. Today's song is Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter by Herman's Hermits, and I almost can't read that without singing it. It was written by Trevor Peacock and was originally sung by an actor named Tom Courtenay in a British TV play called The Lads in 1963. It's been covered by several artists, including Alvin and the Chipmunks, those guys again. And Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter was well known among British bands in the early 1960s and often played at birthday parties, substituting the last name of the girl whose birthday was being celebrated, such as Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Jones, instead of Mrs. Brown. But the most famous version of the song is by Herman's Hermits, who released it in April of 1965. It did really well, and we find it on May 8th, 1965, beginning its second of 3 weeks in the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100. Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter by Herman's Hermits. Link in the description. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with a link in your email, messaging, or social media. If you enjoyed this series, you can check out the playlist that contains these videos. I'll put a link to that in the description. That description lives on YouTube, so for other platforms, I'll include a link to my blog page that's called No Really. You can also find me on Rumble, BitChute, and Getter. All those links in the description. Alrighty, that's all I can think of right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Do not disturb.
Okay, I turned Do Not Disturb on.
Good job. Third time better be a charm. There's no thee there. One more time. Attracting. Just read the whole thing over. Are you making some sound? Get on out of here. Yeah, we're gonna edit that out. Don't alienate people who can be helpful to you. Flinging happiness all over the place. Alrighty, back to work. I think we got it this time.